Okay. Today we will be discussing about the balanced diet. You may be having some idea what is a balanced diet. A balanced diet is basically a type of diet that fulfills all the essential requirements of a human being. That is, a balanced diet will provide you most of the required nutrients in the right quantity. That is in a way it is a balance. That is why we use the term balanced diet. So it should contain all the nutrients, carbohydrate, vitamins, fat, and minerals. So this balanced diet basically consists of all the nutrients in the right amount. That is why it is also, and there will not be any excess of any one nutrient. That is why we use the term balance. And usually the balanced diet will be consists of proteins, carbohydrates, vitamins, fats, and minerals. According to the recommendation of US Department of Agriculture, 50% of a person's plate should be formed of fruits and vegetables, and other 50% should be consist of grains and proteins. So that shows the importance of fruits and vegetables in our daily diet. Now there is another term called recommended dietary allowance. This is also a term propounded by Food and Nutrition Board of the National Research Council of United States. That gives you an idea the estimated amount of nutrient required per day necessary for the maintenance of good health. That is, how much amount of nutrients are required each day per day for maintaining good health. That is known by the name recommended dietary allowance, usually abbreviated as RDA, estimated amount of nutrients per day considered necessary for the maintenance, and that is known by the name recommended dietary allowance. Now, this recommended dietary allowance is influenced by several factors. One major factor is the sex. For example, in the case of men, this dietary requirement will be more. Usually, you know that boys will be taking more amount of food compared with the girls. So, sex is a major factor. Another factor is that age. Adult men and women require more nutrients for maintenance of their body. Whereas in the case of infants and children, they require nutrients for both growth as well as for the maintenance. So the nutrient requirements of infants and children are more compared with the adult men and women. And so if there is a deficiency of nutrients, that can lead to a defective growth in children as well as in infants. Then another factor that can influence the RDA is the body weight of the person. Among adults, the requirements are that means a person with a higher body weight and size usually will be requiring more amount of food or more amount of nutrients than the physiological states of the person. Like if the woman is having menstruation, that can affect her RDA. If the woman is having pregnancy or she's undergoing lactation, so these factors can affect the requirements of nutrients per day. So RDA can be needs to be changed in such situation. Similarly, the requirements of sports person and athletes, they will be resorting to high level of physical activity. So their dietary requirements may be 2 times or 3 times more than the normal person. Then the physical activity. In the case of people who are not active, physically active or sedentary, doing most of their work by sitting or staying at home, and they are not resorting any kind of hard physical work, they need less nutrients because the most of their nutrients are only for the meeting the basic needs. They don't need energy for any physical hard work. In such person, dietary requirements may be less. Then environment can be an important factor. In the use of for example, extremes of climate, either too much hot, too much cold, both can affect the RDA. In persons living in cold countries, a portion of their energy will be utilized for producing heat. So, in them, the RDA requirements may be higher. Similarly, the RDA requirements may be also higher in people living in higher altitude because they may not be getting enough amount of oxygen. So they have to exert more to consume oxygen. So that will also increase their dietary requirements. Now we will see another term called BMR. BMR basically refers to basal metabolic rate, or the number of calories your body needs to fulfill its basic, most basal life sustaining function, like respiration, circulation, and excretory process. All such activities need some amount of energy, and for that nutrients are required. But there is one formula showing BMR that is known by the name. So there is one formula called Harris-Benedict formula. You can see the working the how Harris-Benedict formula is a complicated mathematical equation. So if you put the weight of the person as well as the height of the person and the age of the person in this problem, you will get a result, and that should be the BMR of that person. And for a woman, it should not be less than 1,100. In the case of men, it should not be less than 1,400. So that will give you an idea of how BMR is important for the healthy living and healthy lifestyle. The next is known by the name the calorie intake and expenditure. There is an equation called calorie equation that shows how we are gaining weight or how we are losing weight. So, according to the calorie equation, if the calorie intake of calorie exceeds the expenditure of calorie, then we will be gaining weight. And if there is another case in which we take less amount of calorie, but we are spending more amount of calorie, in such a situation, the person will be losing weight. And if both situation, the intake of calorie as well as expenditure of calorie are equal, our body weight will remain same or remain static. So that is the formula of calorie equation. And according to the calorie intake, in this calorie intake, calories are mainly coming from the food we take. It's our calorie intake is simply the total number of calories contained in the food we consume. Whatever food we take are finally giving us calories for our uh, for 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 the working of our body. Now, in this calorie expenditure, there are three ways by which calorie expenditure are incurred. One is for meeting your basal metabolic rate. This will account for about 60% of all our daily calorie expenditure. Basal metabolic rate is the amount of energy or calories we consume while we are at rest and we are not doing any physical activity. In such a situation, whatever energy we have to incur or we have to spend is known by the name the basal metabolic rate. And next factor that affects the calorie expenditure is our physical activity, and this is accounting to 30% of the calorie expenditure. Then 10% of our calories are used for producing our body heat. So you get an idea that the 60% is basically used for meeting our basal metabolic rate. That is, then we have to do a lot of activity like respiration, circulation, walking, and all these things will be affecting our basal metabolic rate. Without doing much hard work or without doing major physical activity, still our body will be spending some amount of energy. That energy is what we mean by basal metabolic rate, and that is contributing the major expenditure of energy. Now, when we are doing some kind of physical activity, that will lead to spending of some 30% of calorie intake. And lastly, it is the dietary thermogenesis. Thermogenesis means production of heat. Genesis means production of heat. So dietary thermogenesis means production of heat by using the nutrients taken during the food. Uh, and that is known as a dietary thermogenesis. And that is contributing 10% of our total energy expenditure. So this is an idea regarding the calorie expenditure, balanced diet, and RDA or recommended dietary intake.